The sky had the color of burned steel, the kind that makes pilots uneasy even before the turbulence hits. At 30,000 feet, the passenger jet cut through a quilt of storm clouds, its engines humming with mechanical confidence, unaware that confidence was about to become meaningless. Far below, the ocean churned like a living thing, waves folding into one another as if the planet itself was holding its breath. No one on board knew that something ancient had already awakened beneath the water, something that did not recognize borders, airspace, or the fragile idea of human control. The first sign was the light. It wasn't lightning. It didn't crack or fade. It bloomed. A deep, violent blue erupted from the sea, pushing upward in a column so bright it punched through the clouds like a spear. Passengers pressed their faces to the windows, phones raised, minds scrambling to frame what they were seeing as a miracle or a trick of nature. Pilots radioed in frantic reports, their voices clipped and tight, as instruments began to flicker and fail. The jet shuddered, not from turbulence, but from fear translated into metal. Then the ocean broke. Water exploded outward as a colossal shape rose from the depths. Godzilla emerged not as the familiar lumbering titan of old footage, but as something transformed, energized beyond scale. His dorsal plates burned like miniature suns, each one pulsing with a cosmic intensity, as if a star had been chained to his spine. This was Supernova Godzilla, a version born from radiation so dense it bent the air around him, a living apocalypse standing upright in the sea. The plane's cabin erupted into screams. Oxygen masks dropped. The smell of panic spread faster than smoke. Outside, clouds boiled away from Godzilla's rising heat, creating a clear dome of sky around him. He lifted his head, eyes glowing white-hot, and for a moment the world seemed to freeze. Birds fell from the air. Waves flattened into glass. Even sound hesitated, as if unsure whether it was allowed to exist in the presence of something so overwhelming. Godzilla looked up. That single motion sealed the plane's fate. With a roar that didn't just shake the air but tore through it, Supernova Godzilla unleashed a shockwave of sound and radiation. The jet lurched violently, thrown off course like a toy. Inside, overhead bins burst open, luggage raining down. A child cried. A prayer was shouted in 3 different languages. The pilots fought the controls, sweat streaking down their faces as alarms screamed in electronic terror. Outside, Godzilla's dorsal plates flared brighter, the blue shifting toward a blinding white, the color of a star moments before collapse. His mouth opened, and within it burned a core of pure energy, swirling and alive. This wasn't just atomic breath. This was stellar fire, compressed and barely contained. The beam didn't hit the plane directly. It passed close enough. That was enough. The jet's left engine detonated in a fireball, shrapnel scattering into the clouds. The plane began to spiral, gravity reclaiming it with cruel efficiency. Passengers were pinned to their seats, weightless 1 second and crushed the next, as the aircraft screamed its way downward. Through the windows, Godzilla grew larger and larger, no longer a distant nightmare but an approaching certainty. Supernova Godzilla moved with terrifying precision. He waded forward, water parting around his legs, each step sending tsunamis racing outward. His massive hand reached up, fingers curling, not in a wild grab but in a calculated interception. The plane clipped his knuckles, tearing metal like paper. The impact alone should have destroyed it, but somehow, impossibly, the aircraft remained mostly intact, tumbling end over end toward his open jaws. Time stretched thin. Inside the cabin, there was a strange calm, the kind that sometimes arrives when fear burns itself out. People held hands with strangers. A flight attendant, bleeding but standing, shouted instructions no one could follow anymore. Someone laughed hysterically. Someone else closed their eyes and smiled, thinking of home. Godzilla caught the plane between his teeth. The sound was indescribable. Metal screamed as it crumpled. Glass burst into glittering clouds. The fuselage bent, folded, and finally snapped, the tail tearing free and vanishing into the sea below. Godzilla bit down once, decisively, and half the aircraft was gone. The other half dangled from his mouth, flames licking along its sides, fuel igniting in violent bursts. Then he swallowed. A shockwave rippled across the ocean as Supernova Godzilla's throat glowed from within, the energy of his core reacting to the foreign mass. For a moment, his entire body shone brighter, as if the act of consumption had fed him. The sea around him began to boil. Steam columns rose miles high. Satellites above captured the image. A god of destruction standing beneath a clearing sky, light pouring from his spine, the remains of human ambition disappearing into his depths. What followed was not immediate celebration or silence. It was shock. Around the world, Screens filled with shaky footage, radar anomalies, and panicked news anchors struggling to keep their voices steady. Governments scrambled, militaries mobilized, scientists argued in real time, trying to redefine what energy output even meant in the face of something that rivaled a supernova in miniature form. Supernova Godzilla roared again, but this time it wasn't rage. It was a declaration. The sound rolled across continents, rattling windows thousands of miles away. Mountains trembled, fault lines shifted. The message was simple, even if no human language could translate it perfectly, the age of pretending control was over. As Godzilla turned back toward the open ocean, his glow dimmed slightly, settling into a steady, ominous burn. He sank beneath the waves, leaving behind a scar on the sea and a silence heavier than any explosion. The clouds slowly drifted back, as if embarrassed to have fled. The ocean continued to boil for hours, a reminder that the planet itself was still processing what had just happened. The disappearance didn't bring relief. It brought dread, because everyone knew now that Supernova Godzilla didn't attack at random. He responded to intrusion, to noise, to the constant human belief that the sky and sea were ours by default. The plane was not just eaten. It was erased as a warning, a punctuation mark at the end of a sentence humanity had been writing for centuries. In the days that followed, airspace over vast regions was shut down. Shipping lanes went dark, every sonar ping, every engine hum beneath the waves, was reconsidered. And somewhere in the deep, Supernova Godzilla moved, a living star wrapped in scales, waiting. Not sleeping, waiting.